think we're okay. I think we are live. So I'm Jennifer Hughes, and I am with my friend Orshika.
Yulia. Yes.
Yulia. Sorry.
Perfect. It's okay. Everybody goofs it up.
Yes. So we are fellow Success Principles trainers together, and she is working with moms, and I'm working with moms, and so I really wanted to talk to her about the principle ask, right? And this is from Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles. So Julia, how did you get started with this, and how is this? Well, first of all, yeah, why did you want to get started as a trainer?
Right. So I wanted to get started as a trainer because I love Jack, and I've actually known about Jack. I grew up with his Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and so last June 30th, I attended his One Day to Greatness, and Patty Aubrey came and sat beside me, and we had a nice little conversation, and then he was talking about the Train the Trainer program, and long story short, Patty's like, you should do this, and I'm like, you know, it's time. I heard about it 3 years ago through another Train the Trainer graduate, and I kept praying about it, and I kept hearing, it's not time yet, it's not time yet, it's not time yet. So last June 30th, I heard, yes, now is your time to shine, basically, and go learn and teach, and, you know, the path is there and available to you now. And so that was June 30th. I signed up for Train the Trainer in August, ended up having surgery, so I had to postpone the start of learning the specifics. And so from September, I started, like mid-September, and by early December, I was trained, passed my certification, and I just felt like it was time to do this. It's been 3 years on my heart, and, you know, knowing about Jack for 25, 30 years, who knows, I'm not going to age myself that much, but for a number of decades. And so it was just time to really delve into learning from Jack and having him be more of an in-person mentor instead of the YouTube mentor.
Yes, I love that. And we were just talking about how I felt the same thing. I felt like, you know, moms really need to learn these principles, because it really changes the mom. When you change the mom, you know,
you change the family.
Yeah, the whole family, and then they become successful in their futures, and it changes everything. So transform people, the moms, transform people, the kids.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, I love that. So why did you choose this principle? Ask.
Well, so it's kind of funny the way the world works, right? I've always told my children so I have a 20-year-old, she's almost 21, a 19-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And I've always told them, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And so I was sitting at his One Day to Greatness, and at Jack's One Day to Greatness last June, and one of the principles was ask, because he kind of skims over the principles in this one-day seminar. And this is when Patty was sitting beside me. And so he was skimming over the ask, and I'm like, oh, I've been teaching that for 2 decades to my own kids. And honestly, thinking back, I think my mother probably instilled that in me as well without me realizing it. But it's such an important principle, because if we don't ask, the answer is always no. If we do ask, we're either back to no is where we started, or we get a complete yes, or we get somewhere in between. So you're winning every single time you ask. You're winning. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I feel like maybe this is just me, but I feel like so many kids are kind of trained not to ask. Like, don't ask for that. You know, don't try to make me buy you something. Don't ask for a donut. Don't, you know, just I think we're told don't ask so much as kids. We kind of have to relearn this as a skill to just start to ask.
Right. And a lot of that, honestly, and I'm gonna be the mean coach here, and I'm gonna call the spade, right? A lot of that is because of parental laziness. We don't want to answer. It's easy to say no. It's easy to say don't. It's easy to we put them off when they ask, because we as parents I'm guilty. So I'm like telling you all from the space of understanding and having lived it, but it is easier to be the lazy parent and say, don't ask me any more questions, instead of rewording it and say, could you hold these questions for me until later? Because when we're stressed, especially as single parents and dual parents, it doesn't matter if you're a single, dual parent household, we get stresses in life that the children don't understand, right? And it's easier to just say, stop, or don't, or go away, or however you want to word it, politically correct, kindly, however your household runs. It's so much easier to just push it off versus rewording and say, could you please save this until later? Would you be kind enough to write your questions down on a piece of paper, and then we can go over them when mom takes a breath or when dad takes a breath. But we're talking about moms, but yeah.
That's a really good tip. I love that, to just let's just like not right this minute, but I still want to get to that.
Right. And if your kids can't write yet, because I'm a nanny as well, and so she's not to the point where we're 4 years old, where all the questions and all the whys, and they are exhausting, as we know, right? As moms, they are exhausting. And I remember having to switch my thought process with my oldest when she was asking. She didn't ask a lot of why questions, but she asked a lot of questions. And I remember having to switch that because I didn't want to deter her from asking further in life, right? I didn't want to put a train in her way coming at her with that. But definitely have to reprogram our brain and say, something like, can you give mom 5 minutes? And then you can ask me 5 minutes worth of questions. So if your child isn't in that writing phase yet, just say, let me put this timer on, because everybody understands a timer, right? Let me put this timer on and give me 10 minutes so that I can, whatever you're doing, make dinner, or whatever you're in the middle of, yelling at your other child, whatever the case is, right? Give me 10 minutes, and then I'll give you 5 to ask all the questions you want. And then you're present with your child in that 5 minutes.
That's a great tip. I love that, because they can tell. They know if you're not with them, and if you're just like,
Right.
like,
they speak this very well.
yes.
Right. When you're like this and you're like, oh, really? They get it. You're not there. Put your phone down. Take the 5 minutes with your kids, folks. It makes a world of a difference.
It really does, because when they come up to you and say, Mom, read me a story. Mom, can I look at me do this? They're really just saying, do you love me, Mom? And
Yeah.
if you want the answer to be yes, you need to really just stop what you're doing and give them that time. So I love, because sometimes you're in the middle of something. I love that you're, in 5 minutes, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of time. So
Right.
that's a really
And it goes both ways, right? So your child is asking for your time and attention, and you are asking your child to respect your time so that you can give them the attention. So it's not a one-way street. And then that builds on communication with your little human, right? And this works for your adult children as well. So it doesn't have to just be the 4-year-old. It can be the 24-year-old, excuse my nose, the 34-year-old, whatever it is. Us as parents, we tend to not ask. We moms don't ask for what we want. And if we don't ask for what we want, then we're teaching our kids not to ask for what they want. And we're passing that learned lesson along, when it's really a very easy shift. It's a mind muscle, right, that we just have to work a little bit. So by asking our child to stop asking so many questions in this moment, we're teaching them that it's okay to ask for what you want in life. And there's a proper time and a proper place. And you're also teaching your child to respect humanity, to respect yourself, to respect others, just by, let's put this ask off because it's important. It's important to ask the questions that you want the answers to, but there's a time for it. So there's so many life lessons in asking and knowing how and when to ask.
I think that's really true. I feel like it took me many years to just kind of learn how to stand up for myself. And part of that is asking, please don't, speak to me like that. Please don't, just kind of your boundaries. Please respect my boundaries, basically.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it took so long to learn that. And if I would have just kind of learned this ask, if I would have learned it sooner, I feel like maybe it wouldn't have taken as long to learn how to stand up for myself, because asking is the beginning. Asking is the key.
Right. But now you know it, so you can teach your children. And they're
Yes.
going to just be that much further ahead in their lives when they're at our point.
True.
And that's a beautiful thing.
True.
We
And,
always want the generation to move forward, right, and be better.
absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't mention to you yet, but I have 2 kids about the same age as your 2 kids. I have 5 total. So they're 25, 20, wait, 26, 25, 22, 20, and 12. So yeah, we have a couple the same age. But do you have any good strategies for how to start to implement this if it's kind of foreign to somebody?
Oh yeah, just do it. I mean, that's that's another one of our principles. Just do it, and
That's
it
really
sounds
down.
and it sounds so simple, but realistically, it's just like when you're training for anything. Okay, so you're not a runner, but you want to get physically fit. You still need to do some form of exercise. And for this example, we're going to say walk. You still have to put your shoes on. You still, first step, get off the couch. Second step, put your shoes on. Third step, open the door and go through, go out the door and go for the walk down to the end of the street and back, whatever it is, however far you want to go, right? So it's the same thing with this principle. So if it's totally foreign and you're like, I don't know how to ask, I don't know how to set boundaries, and that's really scary because it can be, right? Just ask for something simple, like when I go to the shower, I'm just asking for that 10 minutes uninterrupted. And if for some reason your family doesn't want to give that to you because that's their choice, lock the door. They're not going to die in that 10 minutes. Lock the door. If they choose not to respect your ask, something simple, 10 minutes in the bathroom by myself, right? Because as moms, which that's a foreign concept, usually. Right?
I mean, like, I'm serious. I can be alone in the house for hours, and then I go into the bathroom, and everyone needs me right then.
Yes. My middle one, oh, I love her to pieces, but even when she was like 2 hours without communication, and I get in that bathroom and she's like, hey mom, and I'm like, yep, what's up, sis? So
Yeah,
start your ask with something simple. Start your ask with 10 minutes in the bathroom by yourself and lock yourself in there. And it'll teach them that what your ask is serious, like you are making this boundary happen. And then it could be something very simple, like your child eats the food off your plate and it drives you nuts, but you never say anything. Just ask them to stop doing that, or ask them to, is it okay if I put, and not even ask them, is it okay? Just put the food on their plate and be like, this is your portion of my food, and set those boundaries. And then when the child is asking you, and we just went through this not too long ago, but when the child is asking you a bazillion questions, have it contained, like, give me 5 minutes and I'll be able to answer all your questions.
right.
So I can finish this up, so I can be present with you.
Right. This makes me think of, and I didn't look it up, I just thought of it. So I don't remember what his name was, but he was really afraid of rejection. So he just is like, I'm just going to go out there and try to get rejected 100 times. So
Yep.
he made YouTube videos, and so he would ask for these kind of ridiculous things, like
Right.
a refill on his hamburger.
Right.
and he was surprised at how often people actually said yes when he just asked.
Yeah.
And so my son heard about this, and he watched the video, and he was like, that is so awesome. I love that. So he actually went and asked for a refill on his sandwich at the sandwich store. And the manager really liked him, and she said, yes. She gave him the refill on his sandwich.
Yes.
So
and it's so funny.
Sometimes asking can really just give you like what you never thought you could get just by asking.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I never thought that I would, so I was at an hourly job, and I knew that wasn't going to work any longer. And I never thought I would get the salary, and my boss not only gave me the salary, but increased it by $3,000 annually, just from asking. Was I nervous? Heck yes, I was nervous. Of course I was nervous. You're asking somebody, it's kind of like giving them the ultimatum. Okay, well, if you keep paying me hourly, I have to go find a job. That's scary, but I got $3,000 annually just from simply asking, so we have to encourage our kids to keep asking. right? And to not put that block on them, that's the most important thing. Like, just keep asking those questions. And moms, it's going to drive you nuts. It is. But it's up to you to decide where that boundary is. You can either
Yeah.
get pushed to your limit and get driven nuts, or you can ask crazy for 5 minutes.
Right. Well, I feel like it's such an important skill because that's how kids learn. Kids learn a lot by asking questions, like they don't know how the world works and they don't really know how to, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't have Google,
Right. Encyclopedias. Actual
right.
books.
Right. I mean, my parents would just be like, go look it up in the encyclopedia.
Yeah.
So it's such an important skill for kids to learn, but I feel like because most kids unlearn it, it's such an important skill for adults to learn too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with, as moms, we don't have the answer. It's okay. Forgive yourself. Show yourself grace. You're not going to have the answer to everything. It's 100% acceptable, moms, to say, ask Google. I have no idea. Let's learn together. Not ask Google, go do it on your own. Like, ask Google. And then if you're in the midst of making supper, well, why don't you go ask Google and then you can come and talk to me about it. So this isn't an easy, oh, go ask Google, see you later in 3 hours. You made these children interact with them, learn from them, and let them learn from you. Yeah.
It does so much to build your relationship with them.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
So in what ways can ask help you be successful in life?
Oh, I mean, in so many endless ways, right? So I just gave the example of asking for a promotion or salary and then promotion. And I just asked for a week off. I haven't had vacation literally in 23 years, like a week off from life in 23 years. And so you just ask and you learn. I'm pausing because I'm thinking of the best way to express it, because if you ask too much, there's a line, right? If you ask too much, then people are going to be like, oh, Jennifer keeps asking for everything all the time. Why can't she just do it? Or, oh, she goes driving me nuts with the constant asking. So ask strategically. And the more strategically you ask, the more successful you will be. And that's in business partners, that's in the corporate world. If you ask everybody for help all the time, then you'll be perceived as incapable of doing things on your own. But if you ask strategically, then people are more willing to help, because it's amazing how many people are actually willing to help, but we just don't know because we don't ask, because we're afraid to, because we've been told no so many times as children. We've been pushed off so many times as children. So absolutely, taking that moment to ask strategically, there's so many people who want to help.
Yeah, I love that. My friend told me about a book, which I still intend to read, called A More Beautiful Question.
Okay.
And it talks in there about just asking, how can I get a raise? To asking, where would I need to be in order for me to get promoted and raised? What skills would I need to have? What responsibilities would I need to have? Just kind of ask more strategically, like make your questions better, more meaningful, instead of just asking everything, that comes to your mind. Right. So that you come off as, it's your thoughtfulness shows in your question, and your abilities and your wants show in your question. Like, instead of, will you give me a raise? What would I need to be doing, and how, the skills I would need to have.
Absolutely.
To up level here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to do that. And it's so important to teach our kids that as well. So there are times when, I'm sure we've all had this, where children would ask a question and you're like, can't you just ask that in a more intelligent way? They can't. They don't have the capacity. They haven't learned. It's our job as moms to teach them, right? So if they ask a simple question, be like, all right, well, can we reword this? And help them reword it, because then they'll be more strategic askers when they're adults, right? And then they'll be able to be more successful because they're able to use their brain in a different way. That switch gets, rotated just a little bit. So it's just so important to not just yell at your kids or be stern with your kids. I'm not saying everybody yells at their kids, but be stern with your kids and be like, why can't you ask in a different way? Well, they don't know how to, so show them grace. You know, the 12-year-old doesn't, the brain isn't there. The frontal lobe, as I always tell my kids, the frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet. So give your kids that grace, because we need the grace as adults too. And there are plenty of times we don't ask properly. We don't ask strategically. We're still all learning beings, right? So be patient with them and yourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips or, you know, like for how to do this, or for like, do you have any kind of final advice before we close up?
Absolutely. So along with one of the other success principles, feel the fear and do it anyway, it's the same thing with the ask. There's going to be fear when you ask for something big. And sometimes there's fear when you ask for something small, because some are just socially awkward or socially less tactful than others. So let's say that for somebody, asking for a refill on their sandwich or their drink, you know, which we usually get refills on our drinks, is a very difficult thing to do. And I fully respect that. Some people just have that anxiety, and full respect, right? Because there's plenty of stuff that I'm like, I don't want to ask, I don't want to ask, I don't want to ask. But again, if you don't ask, if you don't feel that fear and do it anyway, and you don't go for the ask, your answer is 100% of the time going to be no. 100% of the time, if you don't ask, your answer is no. So if you want to live in a life where 100% of the time you're not going to get what you want, then have at it. But I don't think that's what we're created to do. I think we're created to learn and grow and ask. So ask.
I love that. I think that's so true, because like I've seen people on like a reality show based on talent where they're just like, you know, I'm just going to walk away right now. And they're like you've won like 5 of these, you know, different, you know, challenges.
Right.
So they're, well, I just don't think it's going to go well, so I'm just going to walk away. And sometimes we want that 100%, you know, you're 100% going to fail. Sometimes we would prefer that than just trying and having the chance to fail.
Right.
And why do you think people do that?
From fear. It absolutely stems from fear, right? And it's easier to be like, I'm just going to walk away from it, because it's not a fear of failure necessarily as much as a fear of success. Because if I do this and I'm good at it, then what's expected of me? Then what's society going to expect of me? So a lot of times I think people misinterpret that fear of, you know, fear of failure versus fear of success. So that's when we just kind of delve into ourselves and see where the fear is coming from.
Yeah, so if people have a fear of success, how do you think they should handle that? Because I feel like that's related to not asking. Is maybe they're afraid the answer will be yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I think people should handle that. Again, just going back to the feel the fear and do it anyway. Because, okay, so you're successful and your dreams come true. Why is that a problem? Like, you know? And society won't put the pressures on you that you don't accept, excuse me. So the only pressure that can be put on you is the pressure that you accept from the outside world, right? So if you don't accept the pressure, they're not putting it on you. So that's where the mindset shift and the mindset work really kicks in. Because I mean, I was guilty of it. I was like, oh, I don't want to do this, because what if I'm successful? What if I don't do successful well? Really? Like, I had to, you know, have that little come to Jesus conversation with myself of like, I don't do successful well, or I could be, you know, a cleaning lady for the rest of my life, which is fine. You know, I will have one soon, right? And I think it's a very admirable profession, but I'm not called to do that, right? And some people are, and so please, cleaning ladies, know that I love you more than you will ever know. Especially the ones that are cleaning public restrooms. You all are saints. Anyway, I digress, right? But yeah, just feel the fear and do it anyway, people. In your ask, in your, you know, fear of being successful, it's okay to be successful, because the more successful you are, the more you can give back.
Absolutely. Do you have any tips for how single moms should be asking?
Oh, single moms. So I've been there for pretty much my children's entire life. Yeah, that one is near and dear to my heart. Thanks, Jennifer. So single moms, make sure you ask for your own personal time. It's very hard to do. Like you heard from at the beginning of this interview, that I haven't been on vacation in 23 years. I didn't take the time. So single moms absolutely need to take that strength from within and ask for that 10 minutes in the shower by yourself. You need that time for your water therapy, right? Your waterfall therapy, and just ask. It's okay. Let the guilt go. Your kids are going to be fine for 10 minutes without you, or no matter how exhausted you are, still take 2 minutes and enjoy that sip of tea or that coffee, or put your feet up, even if it's after they go to bed. The vacuuming will wait. Nobody's going to do it for you. The dishes will wait. Nobody's going to do it for you. But your self-care, I wish somebody would have told me this when I became a single mom. The self-care is so important, and here's why. We serve from our overflow, right? We have a saucer, and we fill it and we fill it and fill it. And if there's nothing in the saucer, I don't know if you all have heard this, but I'm using the analogy because it's everywhere, right? If there's nothing in the saucer, you have nothing to give. Your saucer is you. If there's nothing in there, then what are you serving from? You can't serve from void, right? So fill your saucer, even if it's just a little bit. It doesn't have to be overflow for single parents, because that's really, really hard. Like, I get it. I've lived it. I'm living it now. But just fill your saucer, even if it's allowing yourself a sip of tea uninterrupted for 2 minutes before you crash out for the rest of the night. Yeah.
Yeah. And children are smart enough to understand what it means and to be able to respect that. And then when you're reciprocating, like you said, like you give me 5 minutes and then I'll give you 5 minutes. They understand that. They're very intelligent, way more than we give them credit for. Usually.
Absolutely. Because even the 2-year-old is intelligent enough to understand that. They totally get it. They understand the energies that are coming from you. They understand the spirit of, your intentions. They understand that, like, okay, if I wait 5 minutes. Now with a 2-year-old, it might only be 3, and that's okay. But teaching them those boundaries so that they can have boundaries. Because if single moms are notorious for this. We don't set boundaries with our children because we feel guilty that we can't give them the idyllic household, right? But if you set those boundaries, it's teaching them to live in those boundaries, to have boundaries for themselves as well. And they will have a healthier life. And so you're doing more for your children by setting boundaries than you do if you erase the boundaries.
I think that's true. I think that, children that don't have any rules, any boundaries, social scientists have proven they don't feel loved.
Right.
They feel like you don't even care if I go and destroy my life by doing all these different things that might destroy it. You don't even care if you're just like, okay, bye, have fun.
Right.
Like, it has been proven that children do not feel loved if they don't have any rules or any boundaries at all. Yeah. Which is interesting because kids act like they don't like them, but they actually do.
Yeah, they need them for that structure. And of course, there's always the other side of the pendulum for that, right? Like the too strict. And
yes.
You don't like, yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's I know. I think that's why so many of us don't ask, because it's too strict. But yeah, I have seen the other side too. So that balance.
We have to remember that the world isn't our parents.
Right. I love that.
Thanks.
Do you expand your kind of, what would you call it? Just your paradigm, maybe shift your paradigm away from into a bigger world than just your parents, right?
Right. And that's so hard. Again, that's where the mindset work comes in, right? But it's so challenging to do because it's reprogramming. It's reprogramming those neurotransmitters that have been paving that path for however, if you're 18 years old or if you're 58 years old, that path has been paved a certain way in your neurotransmitters. And so you have to learn to walk a new path, but it's worth the energy that it takes to walk that new path. And before you know it, you realize it's a healthy energy, and that old path will then allow the grass to grow up, and you're like, oh, I don't even remember that.
That's beautiful. So how would you suggest that people would go about starting to change this neural path to a more healthy dynamic?
First, recognize it, right? I mean, you can't change anything if you don't recognize it, and be honest with yourself. Absolutely be honest of like, this has not been a healthy way of thinking. So what can I do to shift that? And then when you find yourself thinking in that less than healthy way of thinking, recognize it and then shift it. Recognize it and shift it. And you just keep doing that until one day you're like, whoa, this is totally shifted. So cool. Look at me not getting annoyed by a screaming child in Target, you know, because you just don't anymore.
Yeah. I have my my sister is visiting right now, and her little girls, the last time they visited, they would just scream and cry so much. And so this visit, I've noticed they haven't been doing that. And so in the happy moment, I just tell them, I noticed you're not screaming. I noticed how big you are. You're such a big girl for using your words to talk, and you know that's how big people do it. So I think that's so important when you're teaching your kids and when you're changing your own dynamic, is to really kind of celebrate the successes as you go.
Yes.
And when you do that with kids, that really empowers them. They feel so proud and happy, and they're like, oh, that's being a big kid. That's what I'm going to do more of, you know?
Right.
So really reinforcing the positives, I feel like, is so important. And ask. This is a great way to start getting that reinforcement, because people say yes.
Yes.
You know, more
yes.
to expect.
Yes.
So
absolutely. And it's so funny because well, see, there went that thought. Oh my gosh, you were on this roll, and I was like, so powerful, but I'll get back to it. Or not. It's okay.
I'm glad it's not just me.
It's mom brain. We all get it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So we're about out of time. So do you have any final summary or other tips that you would like to share?
Just remember to give yourself grace. Remember to give your kids grace. Remember to celebrate them. So that's what the thought was. See, it does come back when you're teaching your children to ask in a more strategic way, to use their beautiful cranium, not just randomly ask a question because they can and they're lazy and they don't want to look it up, right? We all do that, so it's not just the kids, because so remember to reward them. And that positive reinforcement that Jennifer just spoke about, like, absolutely reward them when they ask a question. And that means you pay attention, right? Because we're moms, that's our job, first and foremost, is to pay attention. So when we pay attention, we realize that their wording is shifted just a little, then help them grow that new path. Because you are catalyst in your children's brain function and laying those neural pathways, right? And I have made plenty of mistakes with my own children where I'm like, oh, man, I really messed them up with that one, didn't I? But there's always the opportunity. So with my adult daughter, who no longer lives at home, my other one does still live at home, I could say, you know what, this is great. I love that you've grown through this. I love that you're expressing this. And we could help her shift those neural pathways just with those little re-encouragements, right?
Absolutely. I think reinforcement's the key to be able to shift those neural pathways.
Absolutely.
And then they become our norm. They become our new norm.
Right.
So.
And just show grace to yourself, to your children. Forgive yourself, forgive them. Nobody's perfect. There was one who was perfect, but you know.
I agree. I agree. It's been so great to talk to you. You are so wise. I love everything you said.
This has been so much fun.
It has been so much fun. Thank you for coming on. Is there a good way for people to get a hold of you?
Good. Those are real thoughts. There we go. Yes. So do you mind if I drop in the comments my website?
Sure.
Will that work? Okay.
Yes, this will be live on Mom Champs. So you just search for groups and it's Mom Champs, and yes, just you can share it from there and you can leave a comment in there. Yes.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Comments for how to get a hold of Orshika.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really simple. oshikayulia.biz is my website, but we'll put it down there because, you know, it's a fun Hungarian name, so we'll spell it out for you. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer and crew. I really appreciate being here. Have a great
All
rest
right.
of your week.
All right. Thank you.